Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
To understand better what's going on in America right now in terms of what's going on the streets and what's behind what's going on the streets and why Donald Trump is responding the way he's responding. You see his tweets, we'll run some of those on the screen. If you see his tweets, it almost looks like he is not celebrating, that's a misleading word. A sense of excitement is palpable. It's as if he's watching this action. And in some tweets, it would even sound that he's actually instigating trouble. It's like saying, see what is happening. I told you, fix these people, teach them a lesson. The conversation that leaked between him and the governors of the US, he said that you are being seen as weak or wimps or whatever expression he used, and you should now take control, you should be dominant. So to understand what's going on, I have to take you back to something that Vidya Balan said in that film, Dirty Picture. What did she say? She said, a movie runs on three things: entertainment, entertainment, entertainment. So in today's politics, in democracies, elections are won on the basis of three things: polarization, polarization, polarization. Everything else then comes in because most voters are already divided on ideological or personal or political grounds. So you have to find some polarization whereby those marginal voters in the middle come to your side, and also people who are already polarized on your side, they consolidate even more. So polarization is the key. You've seen that happen in India in 2 elections, in fact in several state elections also. You've also seen this happen in Britain, Brexit and after, and you are seeing this in America too. 2016 you saw a bit of that. Now Donald Trump sees in these disturbances a chance for further polarization. Now the fact is, and that's the reason it does sound like as if he's less worried about what's going on, he's less concerned than he is focused on the politics of what's going on. If you see all his words, all his responses, those are very political. Normally you would have thought that less than 150 days to go for his elections, the big prize is going for his re-election, he should be worried as hell that these riots are breaking out and it's looking like he's lost control of the situation. But he doesn't seem that way. Why? Because you have to understand, we understand polarization in our country. In our country, I have often said, I have written repeatedly that since 1989 onwards, in the 30 years since 1989, 1989 is a key moment because that is a decline of Rajiv Gandhi and Congress party and the rise of Mandir and Mandal and those two competing forces. The essence of who comes to power in India is simple. It is whether caste continues to keep the majority community, which is the Hindu community, divided, especially or mainly in the Hindi heartland, or whether you can then use religion to reunite what caste divided. Because when caste wins, then you have Mulayam Singh, you have Lalu Yadav, you have Congress party someplace, you have these people coming to Mayawati, you have these people coming to power, and the BJP is out. When religion can reunite what caste divided among the Hindus majority community, then BJP wins. So this is a simple equation. How does it work in America? How it works in America is, particularly in today's heavily polarized environment, traditionally, the blacks or African Americans, Hispanics, in the past even South Asians, no longer, even South Asians have been voting Democrats. Because they've been voting Democrats get a bunch of votes. So in fact, the American right would then say, oh, you guys I'm now oversimplifying it and Indianizing this. I don't think anybody uses this in America, but I'm giving you, for the ease of understanding, an Indian expression that, oh, the Democrats or our rivals exploit vote bank politics. Now, Donald Trump has taken it to another level because he is again doing it in the way that, say, the BJP has done in India in the last 10 years, which is to say, look, Muslims are not going to vote for us anyway. Most Christians are also not going to vote for us anyway. But they are marginal. Let them all go and vote against us. If we can get even half of the rest of the Hindus to vote for us in a consolidated vote bank, then we get past the we get past the finishing line ahead of others, because this is first past the post system. The American system, on the other hand, is an electoral college system, which means it's winner takes all. If you win a state, you take all the electoral college votes allocated to that stage. There also, many states that you can presume they will go with Democrats. Many states you presume they will go with Republicans. These would usually be called blue states and red states. So to win, you need 270 electoral college votes in a group of 538. It's quite interesting because in India you need 272 because our house is 543. In America it's not the house, it's the electoral college vote. So it's a notional house. You need 270 out of that. So just about as much as you need in India. But these are EV votes. So for example, if you win the state of Minnesota, even by one vote, you get all the 10, even by one popular vote, you get all the 10 electoral votes that are allocated to Minnesota. Winner takes all. It's again the exact opposite would be, say, the Israeli system, which is the proportionate representation, which means every party gets seats based on the number of percentage of votes it got. So America has this winner takes all system, and Donald Trump has to look at his re-election like that. Now you have to understand, how did he get re-elected the last time? Last time, how did he reach that? How did he cross that magic figure of 270? So he won 26 states all by himself quite convincingly. So these 26 states are generally red states. They are generally won by Republicans, except two in the past, in 2008 and 12, were won by Obama. So Obama broke through these two Republican bastions in 2008 and 12. These were Iowa and Ohio. In 2016, Trump got all of these, but Trump got 4 more states narrowly. These were Florida, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Out of these, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania had been won by Obama in 2008, 2012. They had generally been blue states. So once you add Wisconsin plus Pennsylvania plus Michigan, these three come to 46 electoral college votes. If these 46 had kept to their record and gone to Democrats, Hillary Clinton would have gone to 274. 274 is more than enough. In India, as I said, you need 272, the famous or infamous 272. In America, you need 270. So these 46 electoral college votes Trump had taken away. By how much? You've heard this many times, that in terms of popular vote, Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump. And yet Donald Trump won. That's because he swept these states, but swept only in terms of electoral college votes. So see, I'll just read some figures to you. Michigan, he won by 11,837 votes only, the entire state. So in terms of percentages, Donald Trump got 47.5% of the popular vote in Michigan. Hillary Clinton got 47.2%, only 0.03% difference. But as a result, all 16 electoral college votes went to Trump. Pennsylvania, Trump won by 68,236 votes in all. In the entire state, he got 48.1% vote. Hillary Clinton got 47.4% vote. So difference of just 0.7% vote, but all 20 EV's electoral college votes Trump took. Similarly, Wisconsin, he won only by 27,257 votes. He had 47.2 compared to 46.5 of Hillary Clinton. So the difference again of just 0.7%, but he got all the 10 electoral college votes. So 16 plus 20 plus 10, 46. And that is what swung the election. Today he is looking at trouble. He is looking at trouble because he has been quite unpopular lately. He's been quite unpopular. In fact, poll after poll has shown that not only has he got unpopular, his approval rating has fallen, but it is also that his approval rating compared to Biden has fallen. So I will give you some data. There is a very credible poll, which is actually a poll of polls called 538. Why 538? I told you 538 is the number of electoral college votes in America, like our 543 MPs in parliament. So 538 is run by Nate Silver, who's a famous American psephologist, pollster, whatever you call him. So that showed that Trump's own approval ratings have fallen from 45.8% to 42.6% between March and now. His disapproval ratings, on the other hand, have gone up from 49.7% to 54.1%. Now, when your disapproval ratings are above 50%, it's time to start worrying. Then you look at the other very credible, considered credible opinion poll, although all opinion polls have had questions about them. That is the ABC Washington Post poll. That was polled last Thursday. So the impact of these riots are not taken into account. So last Thursday, Trump's approval rate was 46%, disapproval rate was 52%. So that's a sizable gap. In March, on the other hand, just 2 months back, his approval rate was 46%, disapproval rate was 48%. So the gap was very narrow. Now that gap had widened until last week. Once again, so if we see Trump versus Biden, then ABC Washington Post shows the gap now is 10%. That is 43% Trump, 53% Biden. And if you look at the same parameter 2 months back, this gap was only 2%. 49 Biden, 47 Trump. So Trump would have thought, once I start campaigning, I will narrow the gap. In any case, Biden is not such a good campaigner. That's the reason he keeps calling him Sleepy Joe all the time, because also Biden has the reputation of being absent-minded. But now this gap has gone up to 10%. Now, how did this happen? This happened essentially because, remember, March is before the coronavirus impact had hit America, and Trump was making light of the threat. Now, one thing we keep telling you this virus doesn't like is if you try and be arrogant with it. You have to be humble with this virus. But Trump said this will go away by April. This is nothing. We'll deal with it. And at that point, obviously, a lot of the voters thought that maybe it is not such a big threat. But then America became the most affected country in the world with the best health system, the most expensive, the most pampered health system in the world. And it began hitting everybody. It was at that point that disillusion must have started. And that is when Trump began to lose steam. So if we look at the situation from Trump's point of view, he is looking down a hole right now, or he was looking down a hole. He thinks, I suspect he thinks, until last week, because a 10% gap, even if your rival is Biden, is too high. And then once a momentum gets built in one direction, it usually carries on in that direction. As we know in our politics, it's almost impossible to reverse a momentum once it's been set. Now, these riots have given Trump an opportunity, and you can see this in his actions, his responses, his tweets, his public statements. He is making it out to be a law and order issue, and there is a precedent for this. In fact, there's a very good article in The Economist that I am sharing with you. You can go to the link. That reminds us that in 1968, this is also the strategy that Richard Nixon and Spiro Agnew used. And what was the strategy? Strategy was to address protests as a law and order problem or riots, because once you start redefining protests as riots, law and order problem, unlawful characters, breaking of the law, public disturbances, subversives, Tukde gang. Once you do that, and once you can identify any particular community with what's going on the streets, or particular political groups or ideology with what's going on the streets, as long as they are in smaller numbers than the rest, you can then use this fear to unite the rest. So 1968, Nixon and Agnew had done this, and this is an opportunity that's now available to Trump. Now understand American demography. We usually and sometimes very often we are made fun of that you're only always analyzing caste and religion in Indian elections. Now identity is essential to politics anywhere in the world, including in the US. US is not the Mars, or maybe even if you go to Mars, the day we go to Mars and you find that they have politics, they will have identity there as well. So look at America. America's registered voters, 66.7% are white, 13.3% are Hispanics, 12.5% are blacks and African Americans, 4.7% is Asian, which means South Asians, Eastern Asians, Chinese, everything. Now think of, oversimplifying, but it's a good example. Think of the blacks and Hispanics as America's Dalits and tribals, or you can say Dalits and Muslims. Now, just as Dalits and Muslims had traditionally not voted for the BJP, although BJP got now Dalits voting for them in some parts of the country, not Muslims, in America, blacks and Hispanics have generally been more inclined towards the Democrats. Not as much as you might say for the Muslims in India, but to quite an extent. And that's why you find that in the past, Republican presidents had tried an outreach. So you had the two Bushes, had Colin Powell, you had Condoleezza Rice, all people from the African American community at top levels, and then you had Obama from the Democratic side. But Donald Trump is running the most white of all White Houses you've seen in recent times. So his appeal, he knows precisely, is to the white voters. So he now wants them to consolidate. So all these pictures, who's writing now? Who's writing? Remember, even Narendra Modi said कि आपको कपड़े पहन के मालूम पड़ जाता है कौन दंगे कर रहा है. CAA के ऊपर वो भी इलेक्शन में कहा था in Jharkhand. So similarly, he and his people are now saying, look who's writing. This is a law and order problem. This is Antifa. This is an extreme left movement. The same thing that you see happening in Delhi before Delhi elections. Once again, that did not lead to polarization, but I will come to why that happened. So that is precisely what Trump is now looking at. He was looking down the barrel. He was in a complete mess. His election wasn't going anywhere. He was in fact looking more and more like losing to a very unlikely candidate from the Democrats. Now he thinks that all these visions of black people and Hispanics getting together and coming out and looting stores and doing obviously very illegal things, in some cases leading to deaths of people. Their cause of protest is genuine, it might be genuine, but look at what they are doing now. This is a law and order problem. Call the police, call the army, call the National Guard. If you can't do it, I will come and do it. We have to make America great again. And we love our blacks. So that is a playbook that we are very familiar with. That is precisely what he is playing at. So while we are there, I will tell you about where this trouble started. This trouble started in this tiny state, tiny in terms of electoral college votes, but now every vote matters, or every state matters, called Minnesota. Now Minnesota, this incident happened in Minneapolis. George Floyd, the black man who was killed by a police officer who knelt on him. Now he's been charged with homicide. Now look at Minnesota. And Trump said, in fact, I got the idea of this cut the clutter also from a statement that Trump made. Trump made a statement where he said that, look, Minnesota, the governor is an extreme left type. The governor is doing nothing. and the mayor is doing nothing. This place is all gone. We came very close to winning Minnesota the last time. Now get together and make sure we win it this time, because the prize in Minnesota is 10 electoral college votes and it is a blue state. He sees an opportunity now that if Minnesota gets divided or polarized, then he might get, his base might consolidate more than the other side, because the other side is much fewer. So look at the population balance of Minnesota. 56 lakh population, 5.6 million. Whites are 83.3%. That is much higher than America's white percentage. Black African Americans are just 6.19% and Asians are 4.75%. So if the blacks in Minnesota are coming out and seem to be doing all this rioting, then you can see that the whites, a lot of the whites are joining them and in sympathy, but they are also not supporting violence and looting. So you reach out to the white community and get them to consolidate. And if you get them to consolidate, you can pocket at least that state. And remember last time, as he said, that he lost Minnesota narrowly. So he got 44.92% of the vote. Hillary Clinton got 46.44% of the vote. So the difference was just 1.52% between them. So once again, if you can do this, and you can once again consolidate your base. So remember what he is getting at. He was losing this election, it looked like, quite certainly. Now he sees an opportunity, and that opportunity lies in the same old formula. What is it? Polarization, polarization, polarization.